You're listening to Takeover Digital, the podcast.
Bulla and welcome to the Takeover Rugby podcast. I'm Carlton Kamea. For those of you who don't know, Takeover Rugby has been around as Fiji's highest selling rugby magazine, or magazine in any form, since 1999. Forced into hibernation since early 2020 by COVID-19, we've just emerged to launch takeoverrugby.com in mid-February 2022. So enjoy it and thanks for joining us. No other team in the world plays rugby quite like Fijians, although there's an obvious overlap between how Fijians play rugby 7s and 15s. I'm only focusing on the full 15s version of the game here. Take the Fijianan Drua, for example. In this, their first year of international exposure, playing against Australian state teams in the Super W comp, they have simply been too hot to handle. Too fast, too tough, too fit. Too hot, all right. Whenever one of their players makes a half break, the swarming support play by up to 5 runners behind the ball carrier has been unstoppable. The Australian women's team simply have no answer. Last week at Cbus Super Stadium on the Gold Coast, where they were expected to face their toughest test against the undefeated New South Wales Waratahs, the Fijianan Drua ran rings around them for an easy 29-10 win. In general, the Fijian Drua have exhibited equally exciting running rugby with crazy offloads, impossible passes, unbelievable angles, all from their own goal line under immense pressure. Unpredictably true to form, from one game to the next, the Fijian Drua boys have set the field on fire, scoring 60 to 80 metre scintillating tries like a walk in the park. So much so that previously unknown players with hard-to-pronounce names for the Aussie TV commentators, like Miramira, Hambosi, Ravovo, Nderanalangi, Ikanavere, and Kaliopasi Uluilakepa, are now almost household names in rugby circles in Australia, and dare I say it, probably among NRL scouts as well. Apart from their capitulation against the New South Wales Waratahs last weekend, the Fijian Drua have exhibited free-flowing rugby from one end of the field to another, captivating Australian TV commentators and fans alike with their high-tempo, high-speed and high-energy brand of running rugby. For those of you old enough to remember the national Fiji teams of the early 1950s playing a similar brand of exciting rugby, packed in the crowds in Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne in tests which some say saved the game of rugby union in Australia. 6 decades later, with rugby union in Australia on its knees in virtually every measure, the Fijian and Fijianan Drua have been a godsend to their respective rugby championships, helping to draw fans back to rugby union grounds around Australia and on TV. So much so that footage from their games have featured in the televised highlights almost every round. So why and where does this crazy brand of Fiji rugby come from? As many tourists know, Fiji is a laid-back holiday destination, so laid-back in fact, it has a time zone of its own, affectionately known as Fiji time. Seasoned travelers to Fiji and friendly locals will warn you to embrace and get used to Fiji time, or risk facing total meltdown as your holiday schedule counts for very little and more often than not goes totally troppo in paradise. Best then to have a bowl of kava and go with flow to really enjoy your holiday and have any hope of unraveling this global rugby mystery. In fact, the answer is all around you and plain to see at the right time of day. It is usually late in the afternoon after the kids have returned from school, the farmers from their tei-tei, and the fishermen home from the sea in the coolest part of the day, as the orange fireball sinks into the distant horizon on a beach, village rara, virtually any patch of ground all over Fiji. Young and old alike, boys and girls, drift in and out of games of 3 or 4 or even 50 or more in ongoing games of touch rugby, Fiji style, where no one keeps score, because what's the point? It's all about enjoyment. Like how the Storm whacked the Bulldogs 44-0 on Saturday. Touch rugby in Fiji is all about outrageous offloads, NBA passes, line breaks, blinding speed and swarming support for the ball carrier out of the darkness of the encroaching night, and lots of laughter. In his time, Michael Jordan talked about in the zone. It's something like that, hard to explain, everything just falls into place. But it's in these games where your raw young talent is nurtured, not coached, to play purely on instinct and throw those outrageous passes, or to make the break knowing that support is looming at exceptionally high speed. because unlike touch rugby played anywhere else in the world, touch rugby in Fiji is one touch and you're dead. One fatal touch, or even a claim of a touch, and the ball is lost to the opposition. As such, a player would rather die young than die with the ball in hand. To stay alive, he only has time to act on instinct. Think and you die. There's simply not enough time to consider your next move. Just throw the pass and someone will be there to take it. Witness Peter Gus Sawaikula no-look pass to a Chiefs teammate for the try against the Hurricanes in Wellington on Sunday. Every action is instinctive, not coached. And that's why it is so fast, so unpredictable, and so exciting. One more unique feature about touch rugby on Fiji time is it all boils down to the last try of the game that wins the game, no matter what has happened leading up to that point. It is the exciting madness of the golden point rule that decides the winner in every touch rugby game in Fiji. Imagine only a handful of games in the NRL and now in Super Rugby Pacific are decided by sudden death extra time under the white-hot pressure of the golden point rule. But in Fiji, young players are exposed to this high-pressure finish every touch rugby game they play every night in Fiji. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why no one else in the world plays rugby quite like Fiji. The secret is out, and long may the chaos theory thrive in rugby paradise. Go Fiji, go. For the TaveOverRugby.com podcast, I'm Kaldan Kamea. Malo, Bina'a, and thank you. Please hit the subscribe link below now if you'd like to receive more news, views, and reviews free for the next 12 months as we start charging a small subscription fee from June. Thank you for your support.